Hey everybody, I'm Ryan. Today, we're going to talk about the Ashbringer, the legendary sword. Now, if you want to learn more about anything I mentioned in the video, please be sure to check out links to those videos in the description if I've done them. In the Second War, Alexandros Mograine was a paladin and fought against the Orcs besides the likes of Uther, Lothar, and Tirion. During the Second War, in the assault on Blackrock Spire, he witnessed an Orc warlock channeling magic into a dark orb, likely the heart of a dark Naru. When Alexandros went on to claim the orb, it mangled his hand, and the light was not able to heal the wound. The orb was described as the living embodiment of shadow, but Alexandros was curious and still took the orb, holding it in an iron chest. After the war, he returned home to his two sons, keeping the crystal secret for years. However, Alexandros was still curious about the Dark Orb, and when the Scourge reached Lordaeron, he was confronted by his assistant Fairbanks at his home, went to Southshore, and revealed the artifact to the other paladins. The paladins saw it as a thing of horror, and attempted to destroy the crystal with holy spells. Unexpectedly, the crystal began absorbing the spells, and became its own antithesis, a pure conduit of light. When Alexandros reached out for it, it even healed his mangled hand, and his soul was cleansed. Alexandros wanted to turn it into a powerful weapon he could use to fight the undead, who were ravaging the northern provinces of Lordaeron. But Prince Arthas had disbanded the Knights of the Silver Hand in Stratholme, even though officially they were not allowed to act. Saiden Dathrohan told Alexandros and his advisor, Fairbanks, to go to Ironforge to ask King Magni to forge a blade based around this orb of light. And Magni agreed to forge it himself, to spit on Arthas, who was leading the undead, and who was thought to have killed his brother, Muradin. Master Dwarven blacksmiths have the ability to impart emotions into the blades they shape, and Magni did so into this new blade, thinking of the brother he lost to Arthas. It was forged on the Great Anvil in the middle of the Great Forge. The sword that was made was named the Ashbringer because it left nothing but charred bones in its wake on the battlefield, and was the greatest weapon ever made by Magni. Alexandros and the Knights of the Silver Hand banded together in the Third War against the Lich King. During this time, Alexandros was even appointed the High Lord of the Silver Hand, with the Ashbringer as the Order's greatest weapon. Alexandros' deeds in the Third War against the undead became legendary, earning the name Ashbringer for himself as well. He was an unstoppable force of justice and retribution. During this time, he also told his son Darion that he would one day wield the Ashbringer and also be a force of justice and retribution. When the Dreadlord Balnazzar killed the renowned paladin Saiden Dathrohan, he took his form in an attempt to corrupt the paladins. One of the paladins was beyond his reach, Alexandros Mograine. Kel'Thuzad had interest in the Ashbringer, so Balnazzar and Kel'Thuzad struck a deal to corrupt and get rid of Alexandros. Alexandros had stated his intention to attack the Forsaken at the Undercity, and Balnazzar felt he needed to step in order to protect his brother, Varimathras, who was manipulating Sylvanas. Over time, Balnazzar manipulated Alexandros' eldest son, Renault. Renault tricked Alexandros into fighting hordes of undead sent by Kel'Thuzad, and when he was tired, Renault murdered Alexandros with his own weapon, the Ashbringer. Being used for such an evil purpose, it was corrupted into its antithesis, an unholy sword of shadow magic. Ordered by Kel'Thuzad, the corpse of Alexandros and the sword were recovered by the Scourge. Years later, when the Scourge had control of Lordaeron, one of the new recruits of the Argent Dawn was Darion Mograine, son of Alexandros. He had learned that Alexandros' spirit was being held captive inside Naxxramas, so he rallied volunteers from the Argent Dawn and stormed Naxxramas in an attempt to save his father. It was a trap, and they were ambushed by the Four Horsemen. And to his horror, Alexandros was their leader, wielding the corrupted Ashbringer. Nearly all of the Argent Dawn perished, but Darion was able to defeat his father and escape with the Ashbringer. While Darion held the Ashbringer, he could hear someone speaking to him. His father's soul was trapped inside it. Alexandros told Darion to seek out his brother, Renault, and Darion obeyed. As the brothers came face to face, Alexandros' spirit erupted from the Ashbringer and killed Renault. However, this act of justice did not free Alexandros' spirit from the Ashbringer. Darion seeked out the legendary Paladin Tirion Fordring for help. All he knew was that in order to break the curse on the blade and free Alexandros, you'd need to perform an act of compassion, even greater than the corruption that soiled the blade. Darion did not know what that meant. So, distraught, he returned to the Argent Dawn at Light's Hope Chapel. When he arrived, an army of Scourge was mounting an offensive, attempting to get to the bodies of the heroes buried beneath the chapel to bolster their ranks. It was when the Scourge began winning the battle, was when Darion realized what he needed to do and the truth of Tyrion's words. Darion needed to make the ultimate sacrifice. If Darion could free his father's spirit, then maybe he could save the Argent Dawn and the chapel. So Darion impaled himself on the Ashbringer, making the ultimate test of faith and love. This act freed his father's spirit from corruption and woke the souls beneath the chapel. Together, these spirits drove the Scourge from the battlefield. But Alexandros' spirit was still trapped inside the blade, but uncorrupted. And unfortunately, the body of Darion, and again, the Ashbringer, were recovered by the Scourge. Darion Mograine was raised, like his father, as a Death Knight, and wielded the still corrupted Ashbringer, serving as the Lich King's right hand. There, he used the Ashbringer to cut down Scarlet Crusaders as the Scourge invaded the Scarlet Enclave. The Scourge then set their sights, yet again, on Light's Hope Chapel. The Death Knights leading the attack were told that it was, yet again, meant to raise the powerful heroes underneath the chapel. In reality, they were fodder to lure out the powerful Paladin, Tirion Fordring, and kill him. When the fighting started, the Ashbringer began to turn on Darion, but Tirion did show up, and began raining his holy fury on the Death Knights. And as soon as he did, so did the Lich King. The Lich King began draining Tyrion's soul, and revealed that he was willing to sacrifice the Death Knights if it meant getting at Tirion. It was in this time that the uncorrupted spirit of Alexandros emerged from the Ashbringer and attempted to convince Darion to resist. This meeting was cut short by the Lich King, who absorbed Alexandros' soul with Frostmourne. Insulted in being used as fodder, and his will steeled by his father's soul, and with the Lich King distracted, Darion resisted the Lich King's will just enough to give the Ashbringer to Tirion, who, in a blinding light, cleansed the sword. Using the Ashbringer, Tirion drove the Lich King from the chapel. Due to the Lich King's defeat and injury, the Death Knights found themselves with their free will returned. They formed the Knights of the Ebon Blade, with a goal to defeat the Lich King. The Paladins of the Silver Hand and the Argent Dawn rallied behind Tirion and the Ashbringer, creating the Argent Crusade, also with the goal to defeat the Lich King. When Tirion traveled to Northrend to take the fight to the Lich King, he did so without the Ashbringer. The Ashbringer was transported separately, because it would tip the Lich King's forces off as to who Tirion was, while he traveled in disguise. Instead, it was brought to Northrend by Ares the Oathbound, but he was killed, and the heroes of Azeroth had to recover it from Utgarde Catacombs. Tirion and the Ashbringer were then reunited to wage war on the Lich King. Tirion and the Ashbringer went on to lead the raid on Northrend, the Scourge, and the Lich King at Icecrown Citadel itself. In fighting the Lich King, the champions were defeated, and Tirion was subdued in a block of ice. Calling upon all of his righteous fury, Tirion broke free from the ice, as the Lich King was raising the champions into undeath, and with one swing, destroyed Frostmourne. The spirits whose souls were stolen by Frostmourne swarmed out of the blade and attacked the Lich King, including, finally, Alexandros. Arthas' father, Terenas Menethil II, was one of the spirits, and raised the champions that were defeated. They, alongside the spirits, slay the Lich King. The spirits were then free to move on to the Shadowlands. Tirion then returned to his home in Hearthglen with the Ashbringer, where it would serve as a symbol of the New Dawn. When the Burning Legion attacked years later, Tirion was captured, tortured, and killed in the battle for the Broken Shore. A Paladin was able to recover the Ashbringer at the Broken Shore, and before Tirion died, he named that Paladin the new wielder of the Ashbringer. This Paladin would go on to be the High Lord of the Silver Hand. After the leader of the Burning Legion, Sargeras, plunged his sword into Azeroth, the Ashbringer, along with many other Legion artifacts, were drained of their power to neutralize the wound in the world. While the power of the sword was gone, the symbol of the sword would remain a symbol of hope for Paladins on Azeroth. In the afterlife, the Shadowlands, Alexandros was sorted into Maldraxxus, and he had a sword made for him, modeled after the Ashbringer. His attachment to the sword in life was apparent, even sharing a title with the weapon, and it followed him even into a death. The new sword was called Fatebringer, created by Bonesmith Heirmir, and it worked with Alexandros to defend the Shadowlands. So hope you enjoyed this video and learning about the legendary weapon, the Ashbringer. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment telling me what you think, and check me out on other social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.